Hello, welcome to Mathis Digital. My name is Aaron, and today we are going to see Temenos OFS. By the end of this lesson, I want you to have a good understanding of OFS and how to use it. I want you to be able to describe OFS syntax for both request and response. But most importantly, I want you to be able to create your own OFS messages and post them to T24. I post on a regular basis videos like this where I share knowledge on T24 core banking system. So if this sounds really interesting, please make sure you subscribe and share our videos with your friends. Now let's get started. What is OFS and why should you learn OFS? Well, OFS is probably the only standard gateway to T24 core banking system. If you want to integrate with T24 or you want to interface with T24, you need to do this through OFS. OFS works on request-response basis. Actual OFS is simple to understand. I'm sure you're going to grasp very quickly the knowledge about OFS in this video. There are only two types of formats when it comes to OFS. So we have native OFS format, and this is simple string, comma separated. And the second one is XML format. But in this training session, we are going to cover the first part, only the native OFS format. And I think once you know this should be sufficient basically to do any types of integration. The second type of OFS format, which is XML, is mainly used by the browser. If you know the first part, this should be sufficient. Now let's try to understand the syntax of OFS. There are two types of requests which you will send to T24. One is transaction-related requests, and the second is inquiry. Both transaction and inquiry type of requests have 4 or 5 parts. And let's try to understand those parts. So the first one is operation. When it comes to transaction, operations is the application you want to use. This could be customer, account, category, you name it. This is a valid T24 application. Now the second part is options. Which options you want to use in that application. This covers versions, the functions, and you do want to validate or you want to commit. And the third part of the message is user information. So here we have the sign-on name, the password, and optionally the company. And the fourth part is the transaction ID. So this is again a valid ID for that application. So if the application has auto ID configured and you want to create a new record, let's say fund transfer or account, if you have configured auto ID, then you can leave this blank. But you should respect the format. So if it's blank, you just put comma and you move to the next part. The last part is the request data. So which data do you want to send to T24? Now, again, this depends on the function, on the options which you have selected, okay? If you want to see a certain record, the ID is sufficient, so only 4 parts. You send 4 parts, and T24 will return you the response. Or if you want to authorize, you just need to know the ID of the transaction you want to authorize. But if you are modifying an existing record or you want to create a new record, you need to specify data. And this data part is also comma separated. And this we normally have field and value, comma, field, value, and so on. So you have pair of field name and value. Now, when it comes to inquiry, those parts can be like this. So the first part is always inquiry.select. This is the application. So here we said we put the application name, but here on inquiry, we always use inquiry.select. The second part is missing for inquiries. So the options, we don't say we want to process or commit, whatever. This is why we put comma and move to the third part, which is the same. It's user information. And the third one, the ID is always the name of the inquiry you want to use. The last part for inquiry, you put selection criteria. Now let's see some samples. Here is a sample of a request. Based on the theory, let's try to map this request. So we have the first part is the application. The application you want to use here is the account. The second part is this one. So after comma, we have the name of the version. So in the account, we have the version called mtd.new.ac. So this is a valid version for this account which I have created. And we have the function I want to use is I. So I want to input. This could be modifying an existing record or creating a new record. And here I'm saying process. So if it's process, the system is going to commit this transaction. But if I don't want to commit, I replace process with validate. Now, as we have seen, the third part is user-related information. So I want to use a user with the sign-on name Aaron02 and the password 1236. Additionally, I can also put the company code. So in this case, I will have another slash followed by the company code. Now the fourth part, I put the ID. Okay, so if this does not exist, it is going to create it. And this is a valid ID. And the rest from here is data. Okay, so I want to create an account with ID 41041 and the customer is 111217 and the category is 1001, currency euro, account title is this. Okay, using this version, and when I run this, I'm likely to get a response like this. Because this is valid request, I get the ID, which I sent, /1. This indicates that the transaction was successful. So this transaction was successful. And these are the data. So these are the details. Now let's try this. Of course, I might get different data because as you can see, the data will be different if I run it now. And mnemonic here, as you can see, I'm getting mnemonic auto-generated on this version. So if you have been following our channel, we have created this version in one of our training on auto ID routine. So this mnemonic is automatically generated by the routine. Now let's try this. I'm going to copy the way it is and I'm going to T24. You need to post this from JShell. This is the easiest way to understand Oifs. Use JShell. And the application which is provided by Temenos is called TSS. And the valid Oifs source. I have an Oifs source called bal OFS. This is basically what you get. Of course, this information is different based on your environment. And here you just paste your string, OFS string. When I hit enter, fantastic. As you can see, I get my ID with the 1. And if you look at the mnemonic, here you have mnemonic. As you can see, it's different from what we have here, because my routine always generates a random mnemonic. So here it's QTTM, but here it's EFG08 and so on, okay? But the underlying details are the same. So record is in unauthorized status, and this is the inputter, and this is the time when this transaction or this record was created. And if I want to see this record, I can use a see function. Basically, what I do, I can grab this first part, okay, the way it is. Let's use Notepad. I change the function to see. I don't need to have details because I'm using the function see. So I have the first part, second, third, and fourth. The fifth one, the last one, is missing because I'm using a function see, which does not require any data. And sure, if I use see, as you can see, I get the same details, okay? I can also delete this account because I don't need any additional account. I use function D, okay? As you can see, it is the same. I do this, it returns me the same. So if I try to delete it again, I get a different message. As you can see, unauthorized record missing because this account is already deleted. I hope you understand now how to work with OFS. So this is how you work with OFS. As you can see, this is not really convenient. If you have, let's say, thousands of accounts to be created, you cannot just do this copy paste here on JShell. In our training sessions, we are going to see how you can create a simple basic application to read CSV file or text file and formulate this OFS message and then post automatically. So stay tuned. Now let's see the inquiry. This is how you use inquiry. Okay, basically again, you have the first part, operation, which is always inquiry.select. We don't have options for inquiry. We have user information. We have the ID of the inquiry and the selection criteria, okay, or data. I grab, I send. Fantastic. As you can see, I get the currency and the balance, okay, for this account. Now the remaining part is how do you treat this? The response, okay? It is out of the scope for this, but I'm going to show you in a moment how I treat this in Python, okay? Now, if you try to query for an account which does not exist, you get a different message, okay? Let's see. As you can see, no records were found that matched the selection criteria. Okay, good. So I hope now you understand how to use OFS. You know the syntax OFS for both request and response. As a bonus, let me show you how I use OFS. I've created a simple interface. This is in Python. A virtual environment is activated and my application is on this computer on this location. So let me run it. This is a simple web application, as you can see. Now it's running on this computer, on this port, okay? Here I have another server. This is my database server. On this server I have PostgreSQL database and a database called TestDB. And in this DB I have a table called accounts, where I register the accounts, T24 accounts. So you can treat this as, let's say, your mobile banking database. So what you normally do, you have your interface, okay, or your application having a database. It's a best practice to separate database from the application, okay? So database is running here on this Ubuntu server, and my application is running on my laptop here because I don't have many servers, okay? But all these servers and my computer, they are part of the same domain, so I can reference them by name. Now, let's try this API. As you can see here, we don't have any information related to the balance. So this is just an interface to T24. I only keep static information on the customer. So a customer are registered, the customers who use this service are registered in this database. But the underlying information, balances and other details are kept in the core banking system, okay? Because the balance keeps changing. But the account number and the customer ID does not change. And hopefully the category does not change, okay? And the currency after creation. But again, the currency, I query the system. If you look at the inquiry here I have, it returns the currency. Even if the currency has changed, this is not a problem because I get the currency from the query itself. Now let's try it, okay? From my Ubuntu server, I can query this API, which is running on my laptop, okay? Just put the IP address of my laptop or the name. Okay, my laptop is called Aaron LPT, and this server is MAT server, and T24 server is MAT SRV01. Okay, so I can use the names instead of IP because IP can change. They are part of the same domain. Now, if I run this, as you can see, automatically I get a response. So sure enough, I have 5 records. Total page is 1, so because I'm using pagination, but as you can see the details of each account, okay? Category, currency code, customer ID, and the ID of the account. Sure enough, what we have: account, customer, category, and currency. This is what we have for each account, 5 records. But we don't have any information on the balance. But if I query one of the account, you can pick an account from random. Let's pick like the third one. And let me run this here, accounts, and I put account number. So what this API endpoint does, it queries the balance from T24. As you can see, we have now a balance, okay? So basically, my request came from this server. It went to my laptop, and I'm logging the response from T24, and this is the query I sent, okay? So API with this account. We can use another account. Let me check, like this one, randomly. This account is not found. Interesting. Let's try T24. Let's see if this actually this I grabbed the customer. Otherwise, does not exist. Instead of account, yeah, the ID of account is here. I copy it. Let me paste it here. Fantastic, as you can see, it's very fast. Less than 800 milliseconds. So, but the balance is 0. Interesting. We can verify in T24, by the way. Let's say account C. Yeah, there is no balance. There's no balance. It's not interesting. Let's take another account. Let's take this one. This way I've used this one. Let's take the first one. It's okay. Copy this one. Okay, so we have the balance 21,767.74 GBP. Okay, so we can verify. Sure, the currency is GBP and the balance is the same, 21,767.740. Fantastic. Okay, we can also use now let me show you how I was able to achieve this. Yeah, as you can see the logs here. When I sent this request, I got 44 not found. And these are the details. Okay, now let's see. We have our inquiry. Let me put the custom account which I have used. Here it is. You can grab it from the requests. Okay. Paste it here. Let me run this from T24 inquiry and do this. Okay. Let me paste it here. Boom. As you can see, this is the response I'm getting from T24. And if you look at the logs for this server, sure enough, 1-to-1, it is the same. Okay. As you can see, it's the same. Here and the logs, yes. Okay, it is the same. And the balance, how I did this is really straightforward. Here I have my account resource. This is the Flask application. So if you are a Python developer, this is simple to understand. Okay, so I have this account resource. I'm querying the account. So I'm querying the account. If it exists, if it does not exist, I return for 14. This is a custom message, but it's 4 and 4 with the message. Then this is the part which is doing the magic. Okay, so I have this function called get balance from T24. If I click on this, as you can see, it expects account as parameter, and I've created a client, a T24 client. Okay, and this T24 client is the one which has which knows how to connect to T24 and how to send a request. And one of the methods it has is send a request to T24. It expects a request, and the request is a type of string. So here I just send a formatted string. But if you look at this formatted string, I can copy it. I can copy this string. Okay. Let me copy this string which is sent, and I paste it here. As you can see, 1-to-1. Here on the third part, I replace user information. Basically, this is what we have. The system will do this. And on the last part, the account number, okay? And we end up with this. And I'm printing the response. That is why you see in the logs here, I'm printing this, okay? That's all. Good. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. You now know how to use OFS. In our training, we are going to learn how to create such interfaces, okay? So basically, you can use any programming language, doesn't matter, .NET, Java, Python, whatever, but OFS is still the same. And once you know OFS and you know how to interact with T24, you have got everything, okay? And this is what exactly I teach you on this channel. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video and you now know how to use OFS. I presume you have a solid understanding on OFS and you see the benefits of OFS and why you should learn OFS. So I encourage you to practice. Watch this video multiple times if need be. Ask questions in the comment. I will be able to answer to your questions as soon as possible. And most importantly, practice. Practice and practice. In our next video, we are going to continue our business training. We are going to discuss AA module or arrangement architecture. Stay tuned. See you next. Bye bye.